Everyone, and welcome to the work session of the Mayor and Council for the Town of Berlin. It is Monday, April 4th, 2024. We have one item on our work session agenda this evening, and that's a discussion regarding Beacon's Strategic Plan Phase 3 review. We're joined by John Hickman and Jessica Iacona from Beacon, so thank you both for being here. We'll turn it over to you.
I'm going to start off by thanking
Surround sound.
by thanking everyone in the community, you, the council.
Microphone, if you don't mind. We have some at home. I don't know what the quality of the.
Apparently, it's pretty good.
Jack says it's better. I haven't listened
It was
to
pretty good last meeting.
All right, if we could just use the microphone.
Yeah.
But that's
Am I close enough?
You could move it. Yes.
All right.
Thank you, John.
As I was saying, I want to thank everyone in the community who gave feedback to our surveys, came to the listening sessions and feedback sessions, who invested a lot of time when we were meeting, but also before we met to do review, after we met to provide feedback. So that's just a start of a real thank you to the community. And so tonight, really the work session, you all have seen, and we've gotten feedback from you on most of the steps in here. I want to spend a lot of time going through the tactical action plan. But before we get into that, I wanted to give you, from our perspective, and this is a project for you, so if you need a change in these dates, our proposal is that we will work with you tonight. If there is edits or changes that you would like to see within the plan, we'll make sure that those are completed. And then we're going to get community feedback. We've set up a survey, and we'll be able to pull that up later and show you, so people can give feedback on specific sections. And this is a community comment period. It may or may not result in you wanting to make changes to the strategic plan, but it will at least give you. It may be areas that people want in execution time, a change in that. It could be items that they feel didn't get as much attention as they may want, but it is their comment on the plan. But it is the plan that, based on our conversation tonight, if there's edits, those will be what that comment is on. It's not on what we're reviewing right now. There may be elements in there, but it's not going to be on this. It's going to be what we see from edits tonight. So, and then those comment periods, we have tried to do this. Part of this is to be able to make sure that your plan is in place when you start your next fiscal year, and as you're doing your budget planning. So part of the process of the strategic plan was to give you a framework in how you allocate resources, both capital resources and human resources. So we hope to have it done by then. So the community feedback sessions we have scheduled for next week, that we will then hope to have comments from that, and certainly you're welcome to hear directly, but we'll also summarize those comment periods. We have one on Monday the 15th and one on Wednesday the 17th. I think dates there. I should be able to add 2 and 5. But the one on the 15th is in the morning at the library. The one on the 17th is at St. Paul Church at 6:30 in the evening. So before I get in, just any questions for us on the process?
I want to say thank you on behalf of all of us and the residents of Berlin and our business community. Thank you for the work that you've done so far putting this together, and I'm eager to hear, one, the presentation this evening, and then 2, the public comment that comes from the more finalized draft. So thank you.
All right. So what you will have in front of you is the tactical action plan. This is basically the steps of how you're going to implement your strategic plan. And the driving strategies, we changed the order of those based on feedback from the committee. So driving strategy 1 is to foster a community where all are welcomed and valued. So this is the overarching, that's the focus of what you wanted to accomplish with these steps. And in this, we have 4 action steps I had to check. The first is enhance the involvement of faith-based leaders and community organizations in sharing information with the community. The WHO, faith-based leaders, town staff, administration, and community members. The when, this would be when this is going to begin to be implemented. So it will be July of this year. Resources are time and staff. And the metrics, that's how you're going to measure the impact. Reach of information sharing facilitated by faith-based leaders. Number of faith-based leaders actively participating in information sharing. So any feedback on that action step in those?
There's one portion, I want to see if it's in here somewhere else. I think what we should maybe add, so where it says enhance the involvement of faith-based leaders and community organizations, can we make it say enhance the involvement of faith-based leaders, comma, community organizations, comma, and business community? And then I think under who, we should add the Chamber of Commerce. And we should also, I know we have community members, but we should put community organizations there as well. And that ties in with some of the goals that we have already from this body to want to incorporate the quarterly meetings with the Chamber of Commerce and things of that nature.
So my thought was, or my question is, do we want to be as specific as stating within the corporate incorporation town of Berlin, you know what I'm saying? Or does that mean 21811? Because 21811 goes far beyond the municipality of Berlin.
Your
So-
churches draw from the corporate limits of the town, but aren't necessarily located in the corporate limits.
Well, that's where my question is, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want this to be misleading to someone thinking, oh, well, yeah, we're faith-based, and I'd like my pastor or church leaders to be present, and we're in 21811, but they're on Snow Park. You know what I'm saying?
I think in many
How
ways
do
it's
you-
implied that it's municipal. How do you all feel?
I just don't, you know what I mean? I just don't want,
What's your concern? I mean, if they reached out to us and said, we'd like information,
or they like, I guess, it's not that I don't want to exclude anyone, but at the same time, I don't want it to ever come up later from anyone else saying, well, why is such and such organization present if they aren't actually within the municipality of Berlin? And they say, well, actually, it said faith-based leaders in Berlin, and I mean, I'm a faith-based organization, 21811, and I'm not being nitpicky, but I know that some people,
And there are some that are
Well,
right
yes.
on the cusp.
yeah.
Well, I think it might fall into the same category as when we say community organizations and community members, we're also like further down, community partners is Chamber of Commerce. So I think it would kind of fall into the same category as county resources, like Park and Rec. Like they're down in Snow Hill, but they are part of what Berlin does. So I think leaving it, in my opinion, perhaps leaving it the way it is better, because then it doesn't exclude anyone and also reaches the folks who may be residents of Berlin, but their place of worship is outside Berlin.
and if an organization outside of the town limits wanted the information, we'd certainly accommodate.
Is that what you were?
Do you think we need to get that specific, or is it?
I don't know. I mean,
Okay,
I
stay
don't want
wrong.
it.
So this would be particularly in this one, I think but I'll go to big picture, which is where we don't specifically identify citizens of Berlin or business entities in Berlin. I think it's implied because this is a strategic plan for the town of Berlin. In this specific instance, though, there probably are occasions where you say, whether it's a faith-based organization or a community organization that may be just outside of the town limits, but 50% of their members or their mailing list are, and you know that 50% of their members or mailing list are citizens of Berlin, you might want to reach out to them because they're reaching a large sector of the population. So I think leaving some level of your interpretation, right? But giving the example, if you had a community organization that was just outside of town, but all of their membership was in, let's pick Selbyville, pick one that's so even in the same county or state. So you probably would say, we're not going to make a lot of effort to cultivate that. You got the change there. Action step 2, develop a calendar for meetings and forums that adhere to a rotating location schedule to improve participation by all citizens. The who in this, town leadership, boards and commissions, town administrative staff, and the staff at the locations, that's intentionally to be determined. To start implementing this in January of this next year. The resources, time, staff, and technology. The metrics, the attendance rate in those meetings. Venue utilization, so maybe the times that you use a venue and where it's located in town. Number of meetings at other venues. And eventually some feedback to gauge people's feelings about the meetings, were they effective. Just so that you all understand what this is talking about is not just, I think there's some from kind of code and compliance, are there meetings that have to be held in this meeting space? We haven't done the research on your charter to say that, but there may be reasons that things may need to be held here, but there's certainly meetings that don't have to be held in this space, so that people in other areas of town have the ability to participate in meetings. Okay, without any additions?
I just think that maybe accommodating some larger meetings, we're going to be challenged by venues. I think in the future that could change. I think we have a school in, let's see, 3 of the districts. So there are schools that are located in 3 of the districts that we currently have 3 of the 4. I think that it's definitely something that we should work toward, maybe even if they're just public comment periods or something like that. But the January 2025 timeline could be a little difficult with some locations, but I think that...
Yeah, and again, it's ongoing, so this doesn't mean that all locations in all areas would necessarily on January 25th, but by January 25th, you've made plans to see where you may want to locate meetings.
Yeah, I think I remember at the listening session at St. Paul's where this came up, and it was a reference that every meeting is held on this side of the highway, things like that. So I think it's showing the willingness to listen and move forward with the opportunity to try to address those concerns. It's just my initial thoughts were, while not everybody, hopefully everyone's outside enjoying the weather, not everybody's listening right now or watching, they do look later, so as long as we have the ability to record the meetings, whatever they may be, especially if it's an official government meeting like this or like a planning commission meeting or something like that. But no, I think it's a good response to what we heard and the fact that it's there.
We've talked about like joint meetings with I think Councilmember Nichols, you brought it up, a joint meeting with like the Parks Commission and folks, so we could definitely hold those at some of our different parks. Just, I think a community center, I remember reading that in the listening session from St. Paul's, where the rotating meeting schedule would be nice, and I think a community center would definitely open up some opportunities there as well.
Action step 3, create a campaign themed One Berlin to unite and promote the diversity of all community members, past and present. The who on this, town staff, the administration, and economic development, community members, and community partners. The initial research into how you might implement this, so this is a little, this is really a two-step, looking at how this might be implemented, what are the components of it in January of '25, and giving you a year to really come up with this and launching it in 2026. Resources would be funding, time, staff, the research itself, and technology. So it may be enhancements to a website, or it could be the technology of connecting people. So there's a lot of things that fit in there. The metrics is actually the creation of the Win Berlin campaign, surveys and feedback on people's perception of how effective it has been, right? So those are the two metrics in this.
Can we take out the yes or no?
Yeah, we can take yes, no out. Yeah, I mean, it's, that was, to be clear, it's a 1-0 type of equation. You know, do you actually do it or not? Right? Action step 4, explore events that can take place in locations throughout beyond Berlin, expanding beyond the downtown street footprint. The WHO, town staff, administration, parks, and economic development, community partners. An example is the Chamber of Commerce and faith-based organizations. The win on this is January 25 and then ongoing. The resources, time, staff, and data research to see what of those events might be feasible. Metrics would be percent increase in events held in alternative locations compared to prior years, attendance in the alternative locations, and feedback back from the event organizers.
So can I tie what I'm about to say into 3 and 4?
Sure.
So when you mention the One Berlin, I think, I don't want to take away from it. I know what it means, and I know that that's definitely something that we want to do because it was spoken and it's been spoken for a long time. But that makes me think about the bridging the community, the grant or what have you, and making
Reconnecting.
Yeah, reconnect. Yep, Ms. Nichols will always tear it up. So sorry, but making that's just me. But yeah, reconnecting. I think tying that into this and getting that started, I think would be a huge asset. And I don't want it to sound like a selling piece, but I want it to be, because I want it to be genuine, but it would be huge. And I've been thinking about this for a very long time. When this was mentioned, several people brought it to me, and I had thought it as well, but I wanted, today brought it back to the table, so I wanted to put it on the table. When and if this happens, when it happens. This bridge that does the connecting, reconnecting the town, I do feel that this thing should be named after Tamir Bowen, the child who lost his life. And I believe that his brother, who lost his leg, and his brother that day, he and the rest of that family, they should be a huge part of this campaign because he lost his brother and his leg that day, and we can't bring that back. But by making that happen, letting them be that first family to cross over when that actually is constructed, I think would be for the entire community. Because I mean, that day, I remember like it was yesterday, being out there, seeing the lights and the entire scene. That will live with whomever was there for the rest of our lives. But to see that we are taking that and hearing it, that and the community, and making that reconnect, I think would be huge, a pivotal move for the entire town of Berlin as far as bridging that closure of what 113 supposedly was put in place for. We will help to erase that negativity, I think, tenfold.
So let me ask this, because I'm thinking of this, and this is another action step, which would be, it's pretty straightforward, would be the completion, I mean, of the bridge reconnecting the east and west sides of Berlin as the action step. The who, we can work on that, it's basically the town staff and then whatever outside contractors. The when, that's what I'm gonna ask you on that, because I think, it's already underway.
Well, the grant is not just for a bridge, it's to complete really a comprehensive pathway so that everybody knows, hey, this is how you can cross and get to our different neighborhoods. It's not just a bridge, but a large portion of that is to be able to design and have ready, shovel ready, a bridge for over the top of 113. With that, I think that, to John's point, anytime you can put it on a document, it makes it that much easier for us when we're writing a grant or trying to leverage grant funds to say, this is a community need, this is here in our strategic plan. So I think putting it there would be very impactful.
And I
Well,
think.
so
I'm
but
sorry.
I will say, because when we started talking about that in the broader sense, if you look at driving strategy 5, one of the steps is in there is that broader action step 4, develop an active transportation plan to improve accessibility between East and West Berlin, focusing on pedestrians, bikes, and other options. So that is that infrastructure piece. And so I'm thinking maybe an action step that is how we, because in here, there's less of like the capital infrastructure and more the community building.
So placing the bridge there may be more appropriate.
Yeah, that's a goal, right? So that's saying like we've got this broader goal, and we can put in there that including elements that may be in action step 5. But I knew when we started talking about like the broader picture, it is looking at what are those first steps, and then the broad, maybe a crowning achievement is to have the funding for a bridge over 113.
And since those are federal funds, just so that you have a timeline, I think the goal is to expend the planning money and the design money as quickly as possible and reapply for construction funds. So I think you could safely put like maybe FY 28 for the bridge to be there.
Right.
So, I'm glad that we're discussing this. I'd like for this to be a talking piece for next week,
Right.
so that when the community is present Monday and Wednesday, they can voice their concerns in regards to, because, I'm hearing today that a few people, well, I'm not saying a few, but there may be some concern in regards to, so adding this as something to speak on next week is definitely, it'll give the community more of an opportunity to put their thoughts on all of this.
So I think it doesn't, I think there's probably a value in having an action step in here and that capital piece. And I'm trying to think what we incorporate in there in this piece. I think that maybe in this, it's the community building around needs to and the mechanisms that may improve connections, and we can specifically say a bridge. Am I on maybe the right track here?
I think so. I think so.
I think maybe a better term than bridge, that might be pedestrian overpass or something like that. Because a bridge implies cars.
Okay, so pedestrian overpass, and I'm thinking on the fly here, so maybe it is encouraging community feedback and support of pedestrian overpass between East and West Berlin. And I'm going to leave that to see am I on the right track there.
Oh, are you waiting for me?
Yeah. Well, 'cause you raised the question.
I'm sorry, I was trying to be quiet.
No, I want to make sure
Well,
we're capturing the
I
spirit
don't-
there.
I don't know if, I'm not saying you shouldn't say support, but I would probably leave it at feedback. And I'm not saying that there won't be a great deal of support, but there may be some, some concern.
Okay.
And the whole part of the grant, just so that nothing gets like misconstrued
Right.
anywhere, the whole point of the grant is that studying peace and community involvement and stakeholder
course.
meetings
Right.
and all of those things. So I don't think that the true place to thumb up or thumb down.
No, not at all.
I don't want it to be misconstrued is.
But you don't want to turn away whatever the concern is.
Right, exactly, but I don't
I
think.
think it's important that it fits within, that you've said in your strategic plan, we're getting this funding, and it's important to us to get that feedback mechanism, so.
Yes.
All right, Jess says, actually it's action step 5, gather community sentiment of a pedestrian walkway between East and West Berlin. I think you
Sentiment,
meant
perfect.
pedestrian, yeah. And then we'll put the who's and some time. So let me ask this, you've got some timeline in the.
Why don't we make it a little bit more broad? Why don't we make it, say, overcoming the infrastructure barrier of Route 113 to be able, for accessibility? And Sarah's got the exact language we used in the grant, so we can pass that along as well. I think that could be a little bit better. I don't want the strategic plan to be the place where we deliberate how we're handling this, what we're
Right,
doing.
okay.
Because the whole goal is to overcome the infrastructure barrier. I think that's the place to have that discussion.
Is
But
that-
you already have that in there.
Right, I'm wondering, I
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
getting
yeah,
too
right.
specific of the bridge as a milestone is probably not the best place to place that. Do you agree, Councilmember Nichols? Or do you want the bridge, do you feel passionately that the bridge needs to be in the strategic plan?
Well, I think that the discussion needs to happen in this next week or so, just a year. You know what I'm saying? If it's a discussion piece, because it's been brought to the table to us to now look at what you've received. And I think that as a larger entity, as a larger body, we're looking at it as the positives and the benefits of having this. Not that we are looking to turn it away, but I think that we should also welcome the sentiment. But yeah, the strategic plan,
I don't think John and Jess are the right people to channel that. Do you agree?
Well, I'm going to tell you the topic.
Strategy 5.
That's fine.
Yes,
No,
that's fine.
Action
I'm
step
just
5
putting that out
is
there.
there. I mean,
Yeah.
you have the ability to discuss the bridge at that time.
Right.
Yeah, but this plan,
Before.
I really do believe that we should not be
That specific.
specific.
I
But,
understand.
but we are open to hearing the concerns and the recommendations of the public. We're not gonna close our minds because one of the first things that came in with the addition of the bridge that came into my mind was why can't we have the farmer's market over on Flower Street sometimes?
Well, I mean, with this accessibility, who's to say we can't?
But I don't know if we need to be that specific now, because that comes later when we attempt to work through the who and when.
Then why don't we add it at number 4, and where it says, focusing on pedestrians, bikes, comma, highway overpasses, and other options. You can segue in.
Said action step 5, number 4.
Yeah.
Plan to improve accessibility between East and West Berlin.
Focusing on pedestrian, bikes, comma, highway overpasses, and other options.
There we are.
Okay.
That way it introduces it, and you can have that conversation.
Yeah, we'll have that conversation.
If you add that to the what, can we add a description, a broad description as in the grant for the metrics?
That's a good point. And if someone from, Mary, I turn to you because you probably have access to the language of that grant.
We can get the grant name for you as well.
Yeah.
Is that what you're after?
Either the grant's name or just the title of what you're expecting to accomplish with that.
It's a Reconnecting Communities grant, and it's through,
Okay.
we'll get the acronym for you, as well as you want to add MDOT bikeways, because that's a part of what we're doing as well with like the rails and trails side of things.
Commissioner Green.
No, nothing, because nothing else to remember, just point out that it's FY '25 to FY '28 is just strategic plan. So, but no, I think everything that, because I'm just kind of referring to the likelihood of anything significant happening over the next 3 years on that. I understand behind the scenes, there'll be a lot of work being done, but, I'm interested to hear, about, because I have heard some folks, not everybody wants an overpass. But I think it's also maybe, lack of clarity on what exactly is being studied here.
And I really want to put this out there because Charlene's going to put something out there. And it's important that we don't get too far ahead of that because it's really to reconnect
Yeah.
communities. Is that a better crosswalk? Is that better signaling? What does that look like? It's really not a bridge or not a bridge. It's how do we overcome that? The bridge is the golden goose if we can get it, but it's not the end all be all. There are other options that are available. But part of that is bringing in folks that can help have and guide that conversation. So I really don't want that to be misconstrued anywhere.
And I think when we wrote that action step 4 in section 5, was to say that this is a research of what that solution and what those solutions. I think it may end up being multiple solutions, some short term, some longer term, and if there's some overpass, much longer process.
We also need to really be clear on the fact that this funding, grant money, does not build a bridge.
Right.
Correct.
It does
Right.
design work, making the shovel.
It studies reconnecting our communities holistically.
Yes.
So I'm going to, if we're okay,
Yes,
keep us
please.
moving because we've.
Hit the accelerator.
And this, and that's not to say that there's not value in this, but I want to make sure. So if it's okay, I'm going to go through with the whats and the metrics. And if there's something you specifically note in the who and the whens, let me know. Driving strategy 2, focus on public safety needs, demands, and expectations. So action step 1, continue and enhance strategic police patrols and community engagement to address crime prevention and traffic regulation, developing and deploying appropriate public reporting of incidents, and expand presence throughout the town and in neighborhoods. And the metrics is public safety needs survey, effectiveness of speed cameras, incidents response time, and the number of calls for service by category. Moving on, action step 2, continue and enhance strategic fire and EMS activities and community engagement focused on fire prevention, improved patient outcome, and emergency response. In that, developing and deploying appropriate public reporting of emergency response activities and on-site emergency medical services for identified town events. Metrics, the ISO grading system rating of the fire and EMS, fundraising, billing collection rates, EMS attendance on site at identified town events, and patient survival rates post-cardiac arrest. Action step 3, launch a public awareness campaign to promote and enhance overall health and well-being. On that, the metrics, positive health data, increase in attendance at health events, increase health and wellness related events. So it'd be the number of those events.
Justin, I sent you a number 5 for this. Because it had like emergency planning in there. Take a look if you don't mind. We can keep going, but take a look and see if I sent you a number 5 for that one. we can always come back to it.
Action step 4, involve public safety agencies in the assessment of town expansions and changes in building usage to ensure understanding of capacity and accessibility, particularly regarding the provision of services. And in that, the metric is number of projects and feedback provided by public safety agencies to the projects. So this would both be fire and police, in looking at coverage, looking at issues with projects. Okay. We'll go into driving strategies 3, improve and expand infrastructure, focusing on reliability and safety. The metric first of that is enhance fiber optic connectivity for businesses and households by expanding the network infrastructure. The metric, it would be the number of connected businesses and residents, growth of service-based businesses, cost competitiveness, and current download-upload speeds versus fiber optic download-upload speeds. Strategy 2, engage the community through education initiatives focused on stormwater and runoff management, fostering awareness and participation in sustainable practices. The metrics on that would be the number of citizens involved, the number of implemented stormwater management techniques such as rain gardens, rain barrels, etc. Number of citizens participating, and the Chesapeake Bay report card.
Going back to one,
Yes, sir.
could we change the order? Could we say households and businesses instead of businesses and households?
Yeah, okay.
And also in the matrix, could we make the same change?
On,
Connected businesses and residents.
oh, yeah,
which-
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
On AS2 in the metrics, maybe I'm being dense, but what's the difference between the number of citizens involved and the number of citizens participating?
I agree.
Yeah, I think it was, some of that was looking at the education initiatives.
And those who actually
what
take
people are
that
actually
education
taking
and
the
do
action.
something with it.
But I think as far as tracking it, if you're looking at the number of citizens participating, you
I think
probably
that's
captured
the more
it.
important
Yeah.
metric at the end, yeah.
If not, they need to be explained a little bit better, because looking at that. you-
Yeah, I just,
Yeah.
yeah, it made sense when she said it that way, but
Right. And we're capturing a lot of activities in one action step. All right, action step 3, improve water and sewer system efficiency, looking at water quality and reliability, and sewer system efficiency and optimization. In here, improved measure of water quality using MDE testing data, efficiency, capacity optimization, reliability, and compliance, success of upcoming well water project, best practice of water in the air.
Yeah, that's a thing that Jamie uses, how much water you have in a water tower.
maybe
Put in there water.
maybe
I'm gonna
water
put in
and
tower.
And then
storage or
parentheses,
something may be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you want to do, but Jamie always says water in the
I
air.
mean, we got humidity, there's no question about that.
Like, okay, you're not gonna lower the humidity, but we would like it.
Yeah.
Infiltration and intrusion rates, water loss percentage against historical data. Action step 4, improve
Vice
storage.
President Burrow.
Oh,
I
sorry.
just want to add a word in what, the first bullet. Could we say water quality enhancement, because I don't want the perception being that the town of Berlin water is not currently quality.
You're saying the first bullet put what?
Yeah, so we read, improve water and sewer system efficiency. The bullet one underneath that would read water quality enhancement
Yes.
and reliability.
Okay.
Good point, thank you. Action step 4, improve stormwater management and mitigate runoff through a comprehensive approach to plan and guide system improvement studies and the improvements. So with that, efficient drainage, measuring contaminants in the runoff, observable flooding, number of times a roadway is determined to be impassable year over year, property loss trends, and grant funding obtained versus town capital. So how much funding can you get from outside agencies?
There's a lot of improvement in that statement. I mean, the English major in me is like blowing up. I don't know how else it could be worded, but improvement. I mean,
Oh, enhanced stormwater management. Does that work? So enhance stormwater management and mitigate runoff through a comprehensive approach to plan and guide system and study improvements.
yeah, and that could eliminate one of the
Yeah.
improvements. Yes.
Very protective of my stormwater, of our stormwater.
Just your baby.
So the first improve is going to change to enhance.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
And are you saying to eliminate the third improvement?
It'd be the one, two, I guess it'd be the second. So enhance stormwater management and mitigate runoff through a comprehensive approach to plan and guide
System improvement study.
system and study improvements.
Doesn't make sense.
Does that make sense?
No.
It should just say
I think if you
system.
take that improvement
System
out to
improvements.
guide system studies,
And-
because the studies are going to be for improvement,
Yeah.
and just leave improvement at the end. That's-
I don't know if studies is the best word, because that means that we're gonna, I interpret a study being that we're gonna take the metrics that we have here and then try to study whether or not we're gonna fix it. I think we already know if we see roadways being impassable,
So then just,
To
property
plan,
loss trends. I
Right.
think at that point, it should be improvements, not to study it.
To plan and guide system improvements.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I would do.
So we take studies and out, and it would be to guide system improvements.
Right.
That'll work.
Can you just
Save
read
a
that
lot
back
of
one
money.
more time? How does that read?
More money we can put toward capital projects.
Comprehensive approach to plan and guide system improvements. Correct?
Yeah.
The first improve is enhance, and then you're striking improvement studies.
You know, over here in the matrix, someone has to be capturing this data.
That's Jack.
Over here,
Yeah.
I'll sit there with my umbrella.
There are a lot of metrics in that.
Yes.
I think there's ways that we can gather some of that.
And the last action step here, enhance vehicular and pedestrian safety through improvements to roads, sidewalks, and trail infrastructure. Metrics, number of potholes repaired, number of streets with new/repaired sidewalks, number of roadway issues received versus completed, time between roadway issue report and addressing, number of projects completed on the town's consolidated transportation plan, request to MDOT, and miles of trails per capita.
I think that third bullet could read number of roadway issues reported, number of roadway issues reported versus completed. I don't know.
Why don't we just
Maybe
put
I'm overthinking
reported?
it.
Why don't we just put reported?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
number of roadways issues reported.
Yeah, so if in 2 years that number is less than it was,
Right.
then you know you've made
You're keeping
progress.
on top of it, yeah.
13, from 13, almost the complete way to Chrisfield.
You want to take a round?
I was there. scratched when I saw that.
Oh, they pulled up the tracks there, didn't they?
The other week.
That's your neck of the woods. Go ahead and say it.
There's a bike path that runs parallel to the road going to Chrisfield.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Man, that's really nice.
I think they pulled up the train tracks there, didn't
Yeah, so, well, the train tracks have been gone
Yeah.
from that for a long, long time. But but it was just unused space.
Yeah.
And they came in and did improvements, planted along there.
Oh, wow.
They paved from Marion Station
Yeah.
to Chrisfield to where the railroad, the railroad track now, the bend is still technically there between the two sides of the road that goes all the way to the end of Chrisfield. But that's where it crossed, is right where the trail stops. So. And it's well used, I will say. There's very few times I go past either of the parking lots on the north end or I guess the east end or the west end, that there isn't a couple of cars there. All right, we'll go to strategy 4. Retain small town feel, enhance equity, and provide opportunities for a diverse community to live and thrive in Berlin. And so the first action step in this is study usage, availability, and limitations of accessory dwelling units. So this is to look at the issues around alternative dwelling units, metrics, number of building permits issued, percent of water and energy consumption associated with new ADU usage, impact of increased ADU usage on wastewater treatment, evaluate the need for additional, and I think that is supposed to be, oh no, it is EDUs, and then ADU impact on housing affordability and the housing stock numbers. Right. Action step 2, explore designations such as heritage areas to preserve existing affordable housing. So just to be clear, this is not limiting it to just that. We didn't want to box ourselves into a huge laundry list. The metrics, number of designated areas, number of properties rehabilitated, evaluation of the effectiveness of preservation policies, and number of properties on the National Registry of Historic Places. Possibly identified with signage. Action step 3, study the definition of affordability concerning houses, taxes, and amenities. The metrics would be the creation of affordability measurement index, analysis of tax data to identify any disparities in tax rates or burdens, and development and implementation of recommendations or policy changes based on those findings. And action step 4, implement and expand design guidelines and proactive zoning enforcement to retain and preserve neighborhood characteristics and safety. With that number of design guidelines implemented, number 2, compliance rate of new construction, renovations, and redevelopment, timeliness of resolution to reported zoning issues, and proactive engagement with the community regarding zoning and property management.
I have a question on this one, and I want to hear from the committee as far as how these orders were. But the design guidelines, when October of 2026, we are talking about including money in the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Just kind of curious on the reasoning there.
I think it's a good catch. The timeline should probably be moved up.
Okay.
Don't
Some of
split
these,
those.
and some of these conversations were held before, long
Yeah.
before the budget.
Yeah, exactly. No, and
Yeah.
I don't know, like I said, I don't, look, you guys put a ton of work into this, so I don't even want to be. I'm not
So it
being
might be
critical.
October 25, I'll just throw that out as the timeline on that.
How about July of 2024?
Because of the next budget.
Yeah.
I think that's smart. Well, July of
Make it-
2024?
Make it October
2025.
24.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think?
I guess,
Are you talking about when you started or when? finish it.
I guess, yeah. It's
Oh, okay,
when you start.
That's when you start.
Oh, then yes,
Okay.
July.
Probably the fall.
Realistically.
Yeah.
So October of 2024.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
So then we can also change the date, presentation, information to council.
Make that,
I mean, that's not 3.
make that July 2025. Or, well, no, you want it before the next budget. So maybe March of 2025.
Yeah.
So in that case, how do you recommend the ordering of the action steps? Is it numerical order? It is, right? So
Yeah, so that November to the time.
Yes,
I would say,
with,
is it 4 months?
is that okay with the committee that worked hard
Can we
on
say
this?
4 months? Can we say February, rather October? I mean, rather
That's
on
not,
March?
it's not enough time.
Why don't you
Yeah,
have them
4 months
start,
is enough.
why don't you have them start a little earlier? Why don't you
I
say,
could start.
Start
Yeah.
August.
It took us a full year to do the ones in downtown Ocean City.
do you think July to July? Or
I
August?
think that's
I think you could hit like May.
You don't want to-
You can start it early. If you want to start in September, bring it on to the end of May.
So September of this year to May of next year, if you don't mind.
So then possible implementation would be fiscal year 26.
Correct.
I think that's realistic and reasonable. I think that's
Yeah,
reasonable.
because you get it written into your code
have
and
to-
start developing your processes, but then you don't probably start actually moving on it until the next fiscal year, July 1, assuming.
And it's possible at the stage where it's presented to the council that there could be amendment
Mhm.
and further review.
Yeah.
So, but I think the first presentation in May is reasonable.
And start of September of 2024.
24, for September 24 for start, presentation
So May
in
of
May of
25.
25.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Can we change this, I'm having a problem with study the definition of affordability. The definition of affordability is what it is. And could we say study affordability concerning housing taxes and amenities instead of using the definition? Study affordability concerning housing taxes and amenities.
Yeah, I think that,
That'll work.
yeah. It gives you a little more, what you might want to include in that study also.
Affordability is household to household.
Yeah, because that made me think about when we were at the listening session at St. Paul's. One of the biggest concerns when this was mentioned was, well, we're looking at this from a national standpoint, but in all actuality, what many of the citizens were saying was it needed to be more generalized for this specific area, not so much the national, is that, am I?
If you're
Yeah, you're
going
right.
to define affordability, you have to get it narrowed down to your region, your area.
Yeah, well, that's what I.
Affordability here versus affordability in Los Angeles.
For sure, and that's what, I wanted to make sure that we were clear on that part, because that was one of the biggest, I mean, I'm not saying that you weren't, but I wanted to make sure that we were all on that same page, because that was one of the biggest concerns.
So it's probably worth
in
saying,
the
study affordability in Berlin concerning housing tax amenities.
Yeah.
I think that's a worthwhile
Yeah.
addition, so that you're being very clear that you're not talking about the whole
Affordability
Delmarva
nationwide.
Peninsula.
Exactly.
Right,
Because certainly, there's a
Exactly.
difference.
very great.
Yeah.
That works.
But just to be clear, even in our own area, people were having a tough time defining affordability.
For sure.
Within-
But I mean, if you take in all of Berlin, rather than Berlin, Ocean City, and all of the county, you know what I'm saying? It makes a huge difference.
Because you can
Just
really
like-
impact that.
Just like Steve said, affordability really can come down to not
Household,
only
household, yeah.
household to household. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, this is a big one.
Yes, it is.
I was just mentioning to my colleagues up here, the committee, we spent a good deal of time on that one.
Yes,
It's a, yeah.
that's a big one.
Well, I'll say, so this, you may change the elements of that study, but I think it's important that it's in your plan because it says that you are looking at what makes up affordability in Berlin. You would drive whatever that study is. You may narrow it or expand it as you go forward. But I think it's important. I think you heard that it's important to people that's in your planning to look at that. Let's see, action step 5, develop a citizen academy initiative to help inform the community of respective town departments. And in the measures on that, post-participation survey and the number of citizens involved in the academy. Action step 6, explore the possibility of creating a development corporation. For that is measure the financial viability of the development corporation. And action step 7, implementation and financial sustainability of nonprofit to help homeowners on fixed incomes afford changes in property assessment values. And the measures on that, number of individuals participating in the program, and resource page added to the Town of Berlin website. And we'll take the YN off of that
Thank you.
as we get in the other. Driving strategy 5, improve neighborhood connectivity and access to businesses and services by minimizing logistical obstacles. Action step 1, and I will say, we may want to look at action step 4 and change the order in that, because we talked about some existing things. But first, develop parking management strategies, including shared parking arrangements, parking initiatives, and utilization of technology solutions to optimize parking availability. With that, increased availability of parking, reduction of parking congestion, revenue from parking technology solutions, and visitor satisfaction survey for parking. Action step 2, review zoning and codes for business development in areas that may benefit from mixed use. For that, the measurement number of zoning and code revisions implemented to support business development, increased number of new businesses established, and comparison of economic activities in areas before and after implementation. Action step 3, study walkability, bikeability to town parks and amenities to improve access. Measures on that, walkability, bikeability scoring system, and measurement of the average distance individuals travel to reach nearest park or amenity, and miles of trails per capita. Action step 4, develop an active transportation plan to improve accessibility between East and West Berlin, focusing on pedestrians, bikes, and other options.
That was updated, yeah.
And,
For the when, I would do October 2024
okay,
with a report for July of 25 and implementation July of 26 forward.
does that sound good?
Do you recall what the grant timeline was on that?
I don't.
I don't
We'll follow up with that.
Yeah, so Mary, if you find that there's contradiction in there, we can
know.
update those
We're not trying
dates to
go
be.
beyond, but, yeah.
And you'll get us also the name of that, right?
We can ask that.
Driving strategy 6, develop an indoor community recreation center to address public needs. The metrics, we've got a lot of these in here. Community amenities assessment, design, feasibility, grants, capital campaign fundraising received, community recreation center created. We'll take out the YN. Facility utilization rate and programming. Right. Action step 2, develop a prioritized plan for enhancing existing facilities, ensuring equitable access for all. With that, percent of facilities that meet accessibility standards and regulations, participation rate for facilities following enhancement, number of facilities enhanced or updated, and access to play facilities such as an inclusive playground. Action step 3, develop engaging events to encourage community participation and utilization of recreation facilities and green spaces. For that, number of events developed, number of participants in attendance at events, and social media engagement for scheduled events. And then finally, action step 4, enhance community parks and programs, including a skate park, splash pad, exercise equipment, outdoor gym, recreational fishing, interactive musical instruments, community gardens, and other identified needs. In here is the amount of funding allocated to community parks and programs through Project Open Space, number of community parks and programs identified for enhancement and improvement, percentage increase in park usage, green space acres per capita, and Tree City designation. Also take that for you. All right, so we buzzed right through there. Any feedback on those action steps?
I'd like to go back and see if Jeff's found AS5
For what drives?
for
So-
driving strategy too.
Yeah, driving strategy 2, Zach had requested action step 5, improve municipal emergency preparedness.
We can't see that. I don't know if you have it up on, okay.
So I have it up on
Okay, fine.
that. It wasn't added to
You're
that.
okay.
But we will share it with the,
That's fine.
with the new
What was
version.
what was the action?
So the action step, number 5, new added, is improve municipal emergency preparedness. And that came from
And what are the metrics?
Right.
So metrics include implement CERT team, municipal emergency operation plans, operations plans and government plans, municipal integration and role in emergency operations center, critical infrastructure assessment, threat and hazard identification and risk assessment, ICS training, mutual aid agreements, project code cost tracking for reimbursement, training exercises, and improved municipal preparedness.
And when do you have, what's the when for that?
1 to 3 years.
1 to 3 years.
What is ICS?
So incident command training, so all of us are supposed to have, I think, ICS 1, 2, and 4, I think. I think it's 1, 2, and 4. And then different, like the chief has to have a higher level ICS training because he's a part of a EOC and stuff like that. So there are things in the metrics that we need to hit, like CERT team is a community emergency response team. What else was on there, Jeff?
Emergency operations plans, government plans, integration and role in emergency operations
So
center.
how we align with like Worcester County as the EOC or
And
not.
your who's for this one?
Town leadership, Berlin Fire, EMS, and allied agencies, Berlin Police Department and allied agencies, Worcester County Emergency Services, and Maryland Department of Emergency Management and community members.
And then you should add our utilities and allied agencies because we have mutual aid agreements for like our electric service and stuff like that. Thank you.
So would that, in the umbrella of the who's, would that include possibly MML, now that they've moved emergency preparedness to an actual committee that's functioning?
There would be a
Or-
resource.
That's what I was wondering.
I don't think
When or
they
how, would
would.
they fit in there?
They might be in the resource side of
Okay,
things,
that's what I
but
was-
not in the who.
So for resources, you have time, human, expertise, funding, and volunteers.
You could put associations and, yeah, maybe.
Maybe
Basically, like-
government,
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to put, I don't know how you want to word that.
I don't know either.
Yeah,
Doing it on the fly. Basically like the National League of Cities,
Yeah.
MML.
yeah.
And any
Government
other-
organizations.
Yeah, I think other government organizations.
Yeah,
Resources.
yeah.
I'd also like to throw out, not to lose too much time, but organizations like that can actually be listed in your emergency operations plan.
Okay. See, you know, that's
Yeah,
your
but-
wheelhouse.
I mean, it might not be right here in the strategic plan, but you could put that in your plan.
Got it.
I want to say,
Thank you, Jeff.
I want to say that, and I hope I said it right. One of our efforts is to bring Berlin together as a whole community. And each time we use East and West Berlin, we drive a spike dividing our town. Every time it's used. Every time it's used in this document, every time East and West Berlin is used in any document, it drives that spike. And if we're going to move past this, nothing is neither good or bad, but thinking makes it so. We're going to have to stop thinking about Berlin as an East and a West. If we could not use that term throughout, I think it would serve us better. I would submit to this group that instead of referring to East and West Berlin, we refer to the neighborhoods of our town. The Flower Street neighborhood, the West Street neighborhood, the Decatur Farm neighborhood.
Right. Decatur Street, yeah, I hear you. Reading Avenue.
But using that East and West, it just keeps the perception of Berlin as being, yes, and I don't think it is a good thing to use in a document like this. I would prefer the reference to the different sections of Berlin as neighborhoods.
Would you be opposed to even when, like, for example, if it's a broader than just a neighborhood, if it refers to districts, would you be opposed to that? You know what I'm saying? Because if we're talking about, if he's saying, not you, if Beacon is stating East Berlin, you know what I mean? We can't put a specific neighborhood. It would have to be districts 3 and 4.
And in Beacon's defense, I think they're only using the
Oh,
words
no.
from,
Yeah.
just for
Right.
clarification.
And I'm not pushing fingers at you, but
I
I'm
was
just,
looking through, I didn't think we'd use it in a lot of places.
Oh.
The one place it is used, it's in action
I
step
just say
4.
Five.
Driving strategy 5, and I would, so, I mean, there is a specific, we're specifically looking at accessibility across Route 113. And so we could revise that to develop active transportation, to develop accessibility throughout the town, particularly focused on
communities bordering 113.
communities bordering Route 113.
Why don't we
Just read this, develop an active transportation plan to improve accessibility between neighborhoods, focusing on pedestrian, bike, and other options.
Yes, and your implement, and highway.
Yeah, you had added that.
So you would say between neighborhoods and across the highway.
Well, no, develop an active transportation plan to improve accessibility between neighborhoods, focusing on pedestrians, bikes, and,
Like highway
Highway
overpass
overpasses.
and other options.
there you go. And I like the use of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So then for the metrics, there are also a survey of public perception of improved access between neighborhoods.
Yes.
I mean, is that?
Yeah,
That work.
Break down, Mr. Burrell.
yeah, I like that. Very good.
Every time, it just drives that spike.
So I wanted to first, again, thank you. And I had a question, sorry, I wanted to first thank you again. And then I had a question. I see on page 34, you have outlined like the next steps. So tonight, we are to approve the draft, and then it goes into the next committee comment sessions, which are the 15th and the 17th. But then under here, I'm sorry, everybody, page 34. Then under here in the red, it says updates for the approval of the draft strategic plan will be made on the Town of Berlin webpage and at Town Hall. So I'm just clarifying, those would be available before the 15th.
Yeah, we're going to get the edits done. We don't have extensive edits, so these are probably done.
They're done right now.
Okay. Before tomorrow morning, I wasn't going to promise.
Well, so,
Everything was waiting until after this meeting this evening to see if there were significant changes.
okay,
But then the flyer's gonna go out to utility bills and be posted on
great.
public access, social media, et cetera.
So, and then just so that I'm clear, then we'll have these community sessions, and if there are additional edits, how does that
That will
work?
that will be the decision of the council. The community sessions are community feedback on the plan as has been developed. We are not going to go the step-by-step process we did tonight. We'll probably pull up here but we're not going to go through line by line. People will provide comment.
So here's the draft that was approved thus far.
Yes.
We're opening up for your comments. What do you got?
What would you like to share with the council? And of course, you all may be there, but we'll summarize all those comments, knowing that, number one, everyone might not be able to attend both of those sessions, and that there's an ability to bring that together. So that's the purpose. And we will also be collecting that via survey. So we'll get from the listening sessions, but people also have the ability to go through and just provide comments on each of the sections, right? So they're not editing, but they'll make comments on, for instance, in section 1, the community mission. They have feedback on community mission. But then going into broader things related to the town values, heritage, culture, resiliency, inclusivity, well-being, and vibrancy, they would provide comments on that entire section. Someone may drill into one specific part, but they're going to make comments related to that section of the plan.
Great, thank you.
All right, anything else? Thank you both. Thank you. Greatly appreciate the work that you and your team are doing. And successful public listening sessions and then an adoption of the strategic plan. So,
And the execution.
that's
the
true.
big thing.
That is the key part.
That's the real piece.
That's the real piece.
Right.
So thank you all. That concludes our work session for this evening, and we'll do the public session in, what, 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
All right, sounds good. I don't think we need that for a work session. Thank you. Thank you both. We appreciate it.